Oh, hello there. Um, Obviously, I'm going to continue the conversation involving the Ukraine-Russian conflict, the war. I figure it's a very important subject, and there are many aspects that people don't really know, don't really understand, and I have no physical proof of any of the claims I'm making. However, I will say that the likelihood is it's definitely up there. It's probably an 8 out of 10 out of probability. And what I'm going to suggest would frighten people who don't quite understand how the maintenance of peace um, is brought about by, well, Theodore Roosevelt said it the best: speak softly and carry a big stick. And not that the Ukraine Russian war has been quiet, because it has not, but it certainly hasn't taken center stage like COVID had. It will be a war that more than likely drags on. The Russians have enough military hardware. They've not committed uh, the amount of troops they would need to conquer Ukraine for whatever reason. Most likely because the rules of engagement are set so that the Russians cannot have that unfair advantage. And all these decisions are made by people, as I've said, who are arguing amongst themselves. However, there is one distinct advantage that I believe the Russians have over the Ukrainians, but they cannot tell anybody, even their own soldiers in the Ukraine. So it's, in my opinion, likely top secret information. And this is to ensure that the Russians cannot be removed from the Ukraine easily, especially through diplomatic means. The Russians, in my opinion, brought nuclear weapons, biological and chemical, as well as all sorts of hardware that NATO is well aware of and has forbidden the transportation of such equipment to the Ukrainian army. Unfortunately, NATO is a very distrustworthy entity that does not believe the Ukrainian army could be held accountable for that type of weaponry. So I do believe the Russians have that in the Ukraine, and the Ukrainians do not possess those type of weapons. Now let's remember the Russians also have other things as well. Not just talking about more up to date aircraft, tanks, submarines, and anything like that. But they also have missiles, obviously, that are far more effective than even what the NATO countries, along with non NATO countries, are given to the Ukrainians. The Russians, years ago, had built the biggest non nuclear weapon, I should say, that had ever been created. It was specifically built as a bunker buster. So this thing basically dropped from a plane, just goes right down into the ground. And that means there is no survival shelter that will be adequate for such a weapon. For some reason, there's a lot of doomsday prepper things showing up saying, oh, Russia is going to declare World War III in a few days, blah, blah, blah. Those have been cropping up more and more. I don't actually believe that. It's, it's mutually assured destruction. There's no victory for either side. As it is, there's no victory for either side. There's simply less of a loss. If the Ukrainians are able to push the Russians at least back into, the areas of Ukraine that I don't honestly think they really even want anymore, like those eastern places where they declared their own independence and things like that, they were dives, absolute dives. Like they had no intrinsic value whatsoever. It was more to do with telling Russia, no, you may not take any territory from the Ukrainian country. The places themselves are of little strategic value, and they are of little monetary value. It would be better for the Ukrainians looking forward, not that I'm making up excuses for Russia, but I'm saying that it is in the Ukraine's best interest just to let those small territories go. Let the Russians have them, and hopefully, push them back with more financial aid from NATO. Hold on to the key positions in the Ukrainian country. I did have again and again mentioned about the Black Sea and how important it is, and that is a strategic area that must be kept at all costs. And if it means sacrificing a few eastern territories that really want to either be part of Russia or be their own independent countries, I don't think they could financially support themselves to become their own independent countries. But they would join the Russian Federation simply for whatever cultural and historical bias. It's not the easiest thing to give up territory, but in lieu of the fact that the Russians, I can almost guaranteed, have brought significant hardware that gives them the advantage of being very difficult to be removed from the country. And, there is the possibility the Ukrainians could be overrun. The Russians have used a very small portion of their army and very limited, technically advanced equipment. They most certainly have the resources to up the ante, so to speak, by a very large margin. They have chosen not to do that, probably not through their own volition, but because they were told those were the rules and they have to follow them, or else NATO will not follow other rules that the Russians are imposing. And, this is... there's so many facets of things that are just downright spooky. As a country that I live in, like Canada, next door to the United States, some people believe the Canadians do not have nuclear weapons. That's a lie. Very good documentary everyone should watch is Countdown to Zero. The thing is, through error, mistake, miscalculation, madness, any one of those factors could be what it takes to have those weapons be detonated or used. And, we like to believe that we live in a sophisticated country that would never do such a thing. But, to be perfectly honest with you, there's so many examples where not just the United States, but Canada as well, and so many other countries cannot be trusted. Like, you simply cannot trust them. But can you do anything about it? No. So you try not to think about it because it's a bit of an uncomfortable subject. But, for the Ukrainians, it's less uncomfortable because they got other things to worry about. Kiev is back under attack from Russian forces. The Russians are constantly pushing forward on eastern territories. They've leveled Mariupol, according to Putin. We don't really know, but it's definitely more than likely a probability. And yeah, it is definitely something to consider. And you may ask yourself, why wouldn't the Russians at least tell their own military personnel of them bringing about such devastation or the ability to do so? And the logical reason is because if they're planning on using such weaponry in Ukraine and the army is in Ukraine at the time, whether they're Russian or not, they will have been destroyed as martyrs. Now, this isn't the Middle East. A lot of people have woken up to the fact that I don't want to be blown up as a martyr. It doesn't sound like it'd be a good idea for me. I don't feel comfortable with that. There might even be a case of mutiny in the Russian army that's in Ukraine if they found out that there were top secret destructive weapons beyond what petty ones they're using. And let me be completely clear that the officers in charge of military personnel are tough as nails, and if they say no, even if they're lying to you, then you're not going to get the answer out of them. And usually people or military personnel or whatever, they don't continue to push the subject if all they're going to hear is a no, and the no gets angrier and angrier and angrier as you try to ascertain the truth. And it would probably be better for the Russian army if they went, there is no weapons of mass destruction here. We don't know what they are. They're not here. You can't have lunatics in charge with those types of weapons. And the way through peace here is that each side has to be trusted because of problems that it would cause with the other side in not using such weaponry, which is why, the flagship of the Russian fleet was destroyed in the Black Sea. I believe it was done internally by themselves. Could be wrong about that. Didn't look into it too much. They are not allowed to have an army larger than X amount, whatever that may be. There are satellites in space. They can see troop movement. It is very expensive to drill holes into the underground so that you can bring in massive troops. It is different from, let's compare North Korea to South Korea because they're so close to each other, and the North Koreans are more inclined to use slave labor to build these things. Plus, it's kind of a downward slope for them, so it gives them that advantage as well. Yeah. So much going on. And, I could definitely see this escalating. Not exponentially, but certainly wouldn't be good for the Ukrainians, that's for sure. I'm not quite convinced NATO is going to commit any armies for the defense of Ukraine. A stern warning would be given to the Russians should Ukraine be overrun. And the Polish country has been very, very hospitable towards the Ukrainian problem. And who knows, many Ukrainians may end up living in Poland, as well as a lot of the other countries in the nearby area. And the Poles in particular have a much more competent army than the Ukrainians do. So it would probably amount to a simple, very stern warning, and then maybe 100, 500,000 years of dislike between the Russians and NATO countries, or countries of the former Eastern Bloc of the Soviet Union, as well as many other countries throughout the world. 1,000 years is a long time to hold a grudge, but you'd be surprised countries can do it. They've done it before, they'll do it again. And on that note, I think I will tail this off because, I don't know. There's not much more to say at this point in time. But I highly doubt you're going to find another video like this on YouTube. If you do, please provide a link in the comment section below. I would really like to compare notes with somebody who can either form a rebuttal to what I've said or has similar thought, opinions on how the war is going and what exactly is happening. Anyway, talk to you people later. Have a good one.